for Miami. Meanwhile, in Midtown Manhattan, the mighty Sooners arrive, thinking about bigger things, but also thinking about payback against K-State with that woodshed beating. Welcome to College Game Day.
Very good. Purdue has a big advantage with that. Let's start with the team that I think is the best team in college football right now, the Oklahoma Sooners. I think the most complete team, offense and defense and special teams. Remember now, back-to-back games later in the year at Oklahoma State and at Texas A&M will be crucial for the Sooners. U.S.
Well, first of all, one of my favorite teams of all time, Purdue. Yeah, Purdue's number 5. They destroyed Syracuse and Notre Dame. Then there's Miami. They beat Florida State. They had a sensational rally against Louisville a couple of nights ago. Then USC. USC has had too many close calls to be number 1 on my list. Oklahoma, that 12-0 win over Texas is impressive. And to me, the number 1 team in the nation is Auburn. Why? They beat LSU and they beat Tennessee, 2 of the best teams in the nation. So I'm going with the Auburn Tigers, number 1.
What I want to know is you and I did a show together on Thursday night.
Right.
We were down in Miami, Louisville. We talked about our top 5, and you had somebody else at number 1. What happened in practice last night to change that?
Auburn looked real good last night.
Okay. The walkthrough for Auburn last night got them over the hump and moved them up to number 1. I think my 5 are the same, but it's just different order. I have Purdue at number 5 right now. They're playing great football. Auburn at number 4. They have a chance to continue to move up. Miami at 3, despite their close call against Louisville. USC, I think there's some areas where USC can be exploited and could be today against Arizona State. Number 1 team, as I said, Oklahoma, offense and defense, most complete team.
Everything.
Is that a lean against top-ranked Trojans, man? We'll find out.
Yeah.
We're going to 12:08 Eastern. We got a lot of time.
We'll hit on all those games. You know, as the stakes rise here, so does the pressure. Most of it is external, but the teams have to look.
13th. Look at UVA, their running attack. They've got tremendous linebackers led by Al Groh. My Heisman Trophy front runner, it's got to be Adrian Peterson. He's the guy that's given us the wow factor. And Coach, this morning I talked to George Rogers. Remember George Rogers, he won a Heisman Trophy. I asked George point blank, would you vote for a freshman for the Heisman Trophy? And Coach, he told me, when I won the Heisman Trophy, they should have given it to Herschel Walker. He was a freshman that year.
Mark, good stuff. It's a good thing you're not here, boy. I'm telling you, they're all over you. All right, now let's take a look at my surprise team is California. You know why?
Chad Henne, I think by the time he leaves Ann Arbor, could be the best quarterback in the history of that school. And I think Michael Hart's giving them more balance and more variety. Now, Oklahoma State. The Sooners have to be concerned about the Cowboys. You realize Oklahoma State has spoiled OU's chances of a national championship 2 of the last 3 years. And I'll put Kyle Orton up there. The guy's got 18 touchdowns. Only 2 picks, but I will say this. The next 2 weeks, not only for Purdue, but for Kyle Orton, will decide if he wins the Heisman Trophy. If he lights it up against Wisconsin.
And Broderick Bunkley, who are very doubtful with sprained ankles. Now at Oklahoma, defensive back and star punt returner Antonio Perkins, he's out 3 to 4 weeks with the knee sprain. And at USC, their secondary struggled last week at Cal, but they...
Spotlight game in the Big 12 today. The Sooners go to Midtown Manhattan to take on Kansas State. Adrian Peterson was not there a year ago when the Wildcats took the Sooners behind the woodshed, scored 35 unanswered points. And Oklahoma, much more balanced, much stronger. Jason White is much healthier, and K-State is not the team they were last year. They are 66th in pass defense. That's one issue. Quarterback, another issue. Darren Sproles is number 1 in all-purpose yardage, but can't do it alone.
Well, he can't do it alone, and the defense he's going up against is all of a sudden becoming more and more confident. I think the game that Oklahoma put in last week against Texas, they had 3 sacks, they created 3 turnovers, put up a shutout, was very important for them to prove to themselves, despite injuries, despite the loss of Mike Stoops, that this defense can be just as good, if not better, with this group of players this year and with their coordinators. And I think against Kansas State, they'll prove that again. The other thing is, Kansas State cannot tackle. No. Adrian Peterson continues to roll some big numbers today. Oklahoma gets revenge from last year's big... We're killing them with the Hornets. Okay. They're going to get revenge from last year's Big 12 championship game.
That's a very good pick. And I'll tell you, Oklahoma lost their last 2 games last year. You know why? They stuffed the run against them and made them pass. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to run more this year. Listen to this stat. In the first 5 games, they run for more yards than pass. That's the first time in 15 years that Oklahoma's done that. You know why? They went to Mars, planet Mars, and got a guy named Adrian Peterson. This guy is not from America or the world. The guy is unbelievable. 225 yards against Texas. He had 10 runs over 10 yards. And here's a secret weapon they got. Trey DiCarlo in a national title game. I'm telling you in advance right now, this guy could be the difference. Payback is sweet. Payback is sweet. Like my friend said, Oklahoma in a big win over Kansas State.
Trey DiCarlo is going to come into play in the Orange Bowl, but today it's extra points.
Yeah, that's extra points, baby. A lot of extra points. But in a field goal game, this guy's a cheater.
All right. Meanwhile,
National title game.
Texas is hosting Missouri. That's the only undefeated team.
26 of its last 27.
Bartender, Manhattan. Kansas State hosting second-ranked Oklahoma Sooners. The Wildcats after last season's Big 12 championship game. Legal flashback, Jason White. That game picked off by Ted Sims. 35-7. A two-touchdown underdog. Kansas State wins. Sugar Bowl defeat followed for the Sooners. Third quarter. OU up 3. White. Oh, it's deja vu all over again. Only it's Brandon Archer, 27 yards, top play nominee. Kansas State up by 4. White's only pick, but he did throw 4 touchdowns. Mark Clayton here. Moves and grooves, 15 yards. He had 5 catches, 52, 24, 21, and then White again. White threw 2 scores to Clayton, 2 to Travis Wilson. Adrian Peterson, 36 carries, 130 yards, and Oklahoma wins. 31-20.
With national dominance on the line, the Trojans appeared very presidential in their showdown with the perfect Sun Devils. While the Big Ten unbeatens were in the hands of a Heisman hopeful and the best badgering defense in the land. The Sooners had 2 goals, maintain perfection and avenge last year's stinging defeat to K-State. In the ACC, plenty of cavalier attitude as Virginia tried to reach a new level, standing toe-to-toe with the ACC's biggest bullet. All that plus historic successes and inconceivable failures on College Game Day Final.
Saturday night, it's nothing better. Spread the word that we coming together. So come and help me now. And you don't stop.
And I approve of this message. Oklahoma and Kansas State. Oklahoma sitting right behind SC in the polls. Bob Stoops and his Sooners lost in the Big 12 title game to the Wildcats last year. Darren Sproles, this is his 40th career touchdown, tying a K-State record with L. Roberson. Sproles didn't have much of a day. Jason White, on the other hand, did.
Look at the mobility this year of Jason White, able to roll out, move out of the pocket, hit Travis Wilson there for the touchdown, 17 yards.
Jason White again in the pocket. Look at this, just zinging the ball right across the Wilson again for the score. The game's tied at 14.
And in a 17-14 game, Oklahoma threatening to take control until Brandon Archer played that one beautifully. Pick 6. Snyder's team on top, 21-17, but White answered like a Heisman winner.
And he gets right involved. This is Mark Clayton. Watch the move right there. He's been dinged up the entire season, but he finished the game healthy. That's what I love about Oklahoma. Players play hurt for Bob Stoops.
31-21 the final. Adrian Peterson, 130 yards. All but 26 of those coming in the second half, just as Mark May said they would wear down that defense. Sproles held to 34, which is significant because that's about 200 fewer yards than Sproles picked up against the Sooners in the Big 12 championship game a year ago. So they remain unbeaten. Sooners able to follow up that win over Texas going into a very difficult environment back in 1995. Let's talk a little bit about Oklahoma. The Sooners able to follow up that win over Texas going into a very difficult environment against a team that was a little desperate, and they took care of business.
Remember what happened to Oklahoma last year in those last 2 losses? I mean, what do good coaches do? They assess the film, they find out what they need to do, and then make the adjustments. Well, first of all, they went out and found Adrian Peterson. I mean, that certainly helped. But I think you look at this offense now, at the start of the season for Oklahoma, it was all about establishing the run with Adrian Peterson. I think there were people out there saying, what's wrong with Jason White? 115 yards, 130. You're seeing the results of Adrian Peterson now because safeties have got to get up to help slow down Adrian Peterson. Now Jason White, all of a sudden, hey, the Heisman Trophy winner's back, 256 yards. And then in the fourth quarter, as Mark mentioned, then you go back to the freshman when the defense is tired and you wear him down. He still gets 130 yards. This offense very complete right now for Oklahoma.
I want to talk about the #1 team in the country. That's USC. Many of you may think that Arizona State lost this football game today, Saturday. This game was lost on Monday. This game was lost when Norm Chow implemented his offense. In the entire game today, he created mismatches every series to take advantage of the #1 scoring defense in the Pac-10, the #11 scoring defense in ASU in the country. And the reason why is because of his formations. He wanted to get the ball to Reggie Bush as much as possible out of the backfield, the slot formation, the wide receiver formation. Didn't have a lot of touches, but when he touched the ball, he made something happen. And that's the key to this USC offense with Matt Leinart.
McClintock turned the game around. Michigan scored a couple of plays later. They'd go on to win it 30-19. Here are the other nominees from Saturday.
There's fake to Peterson, pass, flat, caught the 15. Clayton at the 10, to the 5, touchdown Oklahoma. Great move by Clayton right after he made the catch at the 10-yard line. Center Stephanie went in for the TD. Sooners regained the lead.
Fowler Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit to throw out some of the issues of the day. And guys, as some of the stars around college football start to make their move for the Heisman right now, how do you handicap it at the moment, Trev?
Well, I think it's Reggie Bush. I've seen enough. Okay, I've watched a little
definitive
bit.
opinion.
Well,
Here,
it is a definitive opinion because here's what I've come to, Mark. Forget about how these numbers and these stats. I'm looking at guys now and how they change the complexion of a game. Reggie Bush himself, Mark, changes the complexion of the game. The young man, every time he touches the ball, it's 10 yards. Whether it be throwing the football now all of a sudden, running the football, special teams, you can't account for him. Reggie Bush is the most outstanding player in college football at this point in October. I think he's the front runner for the Heisman Trophy.
You know, I totally agree with you, but the problem is the voters out there don't understand that. They don't get that point. They look at the numbers and the big numbers at the end of the season.
Well,
and that's
look at you for guidance right now, man.
Well, he is the best player, in my opinion, in the country right now, but they won't see it that way. They're going to look at numbers at the end of the season. They're going to look at Matt Leinart, another 4-touchdown day. He had an additional touchdown running the football. But I still think Adrian Peterson, another $130 today. I tell you what, he's going to be in New York. If he continues to rush the ball for 125, 150 yards a week, he'll be invited to New York.
I think he's got a great shot at it right now. If I had a vote, I would certainly put Peterson at the top. Chris, what do you think? How do you handicap it at the moment?
Well, it's a fickle business, Reese. I mean, Kyle Orton, the fumble, if Ben Jones makes the field goal, say Orton wins in overtime, the fumble is forgotten. As it is, that's obviously going to really hurt him. Aaron Rodgers is a guy at Cal. I know they lost to USC, but he played brilliantly, came back, played very, very well against UCLA. Wouldn't write him off.
Well, every time USC is threatened against Virginia Tech in the second half, Stanford in the second half, and then again when these big-time guys from Arizona State come in, one guy takes them, Matt Leinart. Reggie Bush is a terrific player, but if Reggie Bush sat down tomorrow, USC would still win as long as they have Matt Leinart and Norm Chow. That's my opinion.
All right. We talked about this last week at the Coliseum. The most valuable player on USC's team is probably Matt Leinart because of his leadership, but the best player on the USC roster is Reggie Bush, and the guy's back in the studio right. Every single time the guy touches the ball, he makes a big play, so he is the best player in the country. I think this is an interesting race. I think it's wide open because, guys, you know how the Heisman race, it gets broken down by region. All the candidates are either in the Southwest on Oklahoma's roster because Jason White had a big game along with Peterson, or on the West Coast. The East, the Southeast, it's wide open, so this race is still a long way from being over.
All right, topic number 2, guys, your head coach or assistant coach of the day.
Dennis Francione from Texas A&M, and the reason why he goes into Oklahoma State, who's undefeated, and he beats them. He's now won 5 in a row after the loss to Utah, and I'll tell you one thing, how good is Utah? We saw Texas A&M get demolished by Utah. Now they won 5 straight, including beating Oklahoma State. They must be pretty good, too.
Yeah, and A&M, just as young as they are, they just keep getting better. And Reggie McNeil, unbelievable day. My coach of the day would be definitely Brett Bielema, the defensive coordinator from Wisconsin. Their team's on the ropes. They need a big play. And, again, it's the defense without Erasmus James steps up and saves Wisconsin in the Big Ten race and saves their undefeated season, at least for now. And, you could pick a whole list of guys, but I'll take Brett Bielema.
Norm Chow, what about USC? They don't have Steve Smith. Mickey Andrews in the defense destroying Virginia. And Bobby Ross, guys. Bobby Ross, they got a streak, but it's now 2 straight wins at Army.
Yeah, all of a sudden after that losing streak, they got a winning streak going. And Mark, you said early in the day when SC started taking Arizona State apart, when was that game won by the Trojans?
That was won in the game plan period by Norm Chow earlier this week. My coach of the day, guys, is Norm Chow without a doubt. The way that he had this offense perfected, the way that he distributed the ball between Reggie Bush out of the backfield, Reggie Bush at the wide receiver position, getting it to the wide receivers, getting it to the running backs. I was so impressed the way they just dissected the Arizona State defense today.
My coach of the day, I think, was Terry Malone, the offensive coordinator at Michigan. And
Okay, this is the way that we believe the top 10 should look when it comes out on Sunday. This is how our BCS guru, Brad Edwards, believes that the very first BCS standings will look on Monday. Now, 2/3 of this formula now depends on the poll rankings. SC Oklahoma 1-2. Brad believes that Miami will have a slight lead on Auburn, with Florida State being sitting in there at number 5. All right, guys, let's do some helmet stickers.
My first one goes to Mickey Andrews, the defensive coordinator of Florida State. Had an outstanding game, held Virginia to over 200 yards less rushing than their average today.
Michael Hart, how about the freshman? 234 yards rushing. I got to give half of it to Terry Malone, the offensive coordinator.
Scott Starks, this is all player. Interception, fumble return for a touchdown. Won it for the Badgers against Purdue.
Dwayne Jarrett, the fantastic freshman from USC, 5 receptions, 139 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Drew Stanton, almost 400 yards. Outstanding.
Jason Campbell, only 2 incomplete passes. And how about Reggie McNeil from Texas A&M, also helmet sticker. Who you got there?
Carlton Jones from Army.
5 touchdowns in that one. Mark